Hi everyone. This is a video to demonstrate how to sew the welt pockets. So this is what our final welt pockets are going to look like. It has this beautiful detail that folds up and this pocket that just beautifully you kind of slide in. Now this is a fully reversible jacket, so you can do the welt pocket on all of your front pieces, including your lining pieces if you would like to have them functional when you reverse your jacket, and so that they're on the inside as well. But for the purposes of this tutorial, I am only going to do them on the main fabric. So I went ahead and already completed this one side to show you what it looked like, but we're going to start off with the left side of the jacket. So you will notice on the pattern piece that there is a welt pocket guide that's on there. Now what I also did was I included a separate pattern piece for you with that same guide. So sometimes if you're printing multiple layers, it can get confusing to know exactly which or what your welt pocket guide is supposed to look like. So that's why I included the extra piece. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to transfer the markings of your welt pocket guide onto your main fabric. And so hopefully you can see these markings well in this video. It looks like it's showing up here for me when I'm looking at it. So you're going to want to transfer that over. This is a 1/2 inch in width, and this other line is directly in the center, so it's a 1/4 inch from each side. Now, after you have that all transferred, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your pocket detail pieces and make sure that you interface them on the wrong side, both of those pieces. After that, you're also going to want to make sure that you interface on the wrong side of your front jacket pieces and that the interfacing goes beyond the welt pocket guide. So the welt pocket guide right now is right about here. So you'll notice that I just cut a piece that was much larger just to make sure that I got all of the possible edges of this welt pocket guide on the front. And it just adds good stability to this knit to make sure that we have a very clean finished product. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this welt pocket guide and I'm going to fold it in half lengthwise. I'm going to grab a couple of pins and I'm going to pin it on both sides. So wrong sides together, fold it in half lengthwise, and this is what it's going to look like. Now I am going to lay this up against the edge of my pocket guide and my markings on my front jacket. And the reason why I'm going to do that is because, while we're transferring markings to our main fabric, you could accidentally make the pocket guide slightly bigger than what the pattern piece is, or you might cut your pocket detail piece a little bit smaller. And so by doing it this way, we can ensure that the finished look that we're going to have is going to be clean and we're not going to have any excess fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to center this along this welt pocket guide and I'm going to make a mark. You're going to see that it's going to hang over the edge of the pocket guide slightly. So I'm going to just place a mark on either side here so that I know exactly where to sew, and I'm going to be sewing all along here, so that when I turn this piece right side out, that I know that the finished piece is going to be exactly the same size as the pocket opening that I have on my garment. So let me take this to my sewing machine. I'm using a standard sewing machine with a straight stitch. I'm using a 3.5 inch stitch length. I'm also using a zipper foot just because I think that I have better control over more precise sewing, but you can certainly use what works best for you. Sewing got a little wonky, but that's okay. This thread I'm using is kind of thick and wiry, so it's caused me a little bit of challenges today. Okay, so now I'm going to snip my threads here. And I'm going to remove my pins. And now I'm going to just snip the corners, all of these corners, making sure that I don't go past the stitches that I just made. And then now I'm going to turn this right side out. and I'm gonna push the edges out so that it has a really nice clean finish and that it's laying very flat. There we go. Okay, this corner could be a little bit better. And so now I'm going to line up the raw edges with the center line on the markings on my fabric. So the center line, not either of the outer edges, but the line that is diagonally along the center. And I am just going to pin this in place. Okay, here we go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my pocket A's and one of my pocket B's. Now I have these right now facing right sides together, and you will notice that the only difference between these two pieces is that one is about 1/2 inch longer on this side that we're actually going to be attaching to the pocket on that side is 1/2 inch longer. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take both of these pieces, I'm going to turn them right side down, I'm going to take my ruler, and I'm actually going to draw a line that is 1/4 inch from the edge. Now, you don't have to do this, but it just makes it easier if you take this extra step. So 1/4 inch from the edge there, and I'm going to do the same thing here, 1/4 inch. I love these sewing rulers. Okay. Quarter inch. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I am going to take piece A and I'm going to line up piece A with the edge of my pocket detail piece right there. Now it's going to hang over the edge, but I'm going to want it to hang over the edge of the pocket detail piece evenly. So you just need to use your eyeballs, right? And make sure that it's positioned correctly on top of this pocket detail piece with the right side down and repin through all the layers. Pinning very well today. There we go. And one last piece. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little mark directly above where this pattern detail piece ends, because I want to make sure that in the next step I don't sew past that. So I'm going to make a little mark there and a little mark here. I'm going to take this to my sewing machine and I'm going to draw a straight line, I'm going to sew a straight stitch from this point to this point along that line. Now this is going to mirror the fabric markings that are on your fabric underneath, but of course you can't see that because our pieces are covering it, which is why I now put it onto this fabric. All of this is also going to be concealed when the pocket's done, so the markings I make don't really matter. Okay, so now that that is done, I'm going to remove these pins and I'm going to take my B piece, I'm going to flip it so that the right side is down and it is going to be mirrored. It's going to be mirroring the piece below it. And I'm going to butt this up directly up against it. so that the centers are touching, and I'm going to pin this in place. Okay, so now what I'm also going to do is I'm going to transfer that same marking that's here, so that I know where my stop is, right? I know what piece I need to not, what part I need to not go beyond. And I'm going to take that to my sewing machine and sew another straight stitch. Okay, so here we go. I have that sewn now. I'm going to remove the pins, snip my threads. And now I'm going to move all of these out of the way to reveal that line that's right there in the center. That's on my main fabric, and I'm going to use my rotary cutter, and I'm going to cut very carefully along that line, stopping before those triangular pieces. Now, after that split, I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to just cut the triangular pieces. Okay, now that that's all done and all cut, I'm going to put these together and I'm going to flip it to the inside of my jacket. Flip it all to the inside, okay? So now I'm going to turn this around, extra thread here, and I'm going to flip this pocket up so that it is facing towards the side seam and it's out of the way, and that this raw edge here is visible, okay? So I'm going to keep that moved out of the way, turn it right side up again. And this here, I'm going to top stitch those seams down, seam allowances down right there. I'm going to take this back to my sewing machine. Okay, so now I am done top stitching that down, the seam allowance down, with my pocket moved out of the way. And so now I'm going to put my pockets in the right position. So I'm going to face them down here. Right sides are together. And next, what I'm going to do is I am going to lift the jacket front out of the way, and I'm going to straighten out these pockets and pin them in place. They should match up perfectly. So let's add a couple of pins. And then I'm going to move this area out of the way and straighten this up. And I'm going to make sure that this triangular piece from our front welt pocket guide that's on our main fabric is laying flat so that the right side is together with that pocket B in the back. And I'm going to make sure that I pin this in place so that we make sure to get that triangle when we sew our pockets closed. So I'm going to just add a couple of pins here. There's a 1/4 inch seam allowance when you sew these pockets together. I'm going to do the same thing for this side. I'm just going to kind of fold that front jacket out of the way, and I'm going to lay this triangle down. I'm going to pin it so that it stays in place when I sew. And just add a few pins to make sure that everything lays flat as possible with the front jacket kind of bunched up right there. This is custom cotton lycra, so it's rolling a little bit. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, I'm going to sew here, and I'm actually going to get as close as I can right here to the base of this triangle because the finish will be much better, and then sew all the way around the pocket and come up and end over here on this side of the other side of the pocket. So let me just take this. Okay, so now I went ahead and I did that sewing all the way around, and you can see here that I caught that tab in the seam, and I caught this tab in the seam as well, and so all looks good. So I'm going to pull out the rest of my pins, and I'm going to go ahead and just fold this down, and I'm just going to clip some of the excess threads that I have here. And look at how beautiful this looks from the front. Now we just have one more thing to do to complete this. We have to secure the top part of this placket detail, or excuse me, of the welt pocket detail. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the corner here of this pocket detail, and I'm going to put it and just overlap it slightly onto the main fabric right here, and I'm going to pin that in place. And I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Just slightly covering that opening. And I am going to top stitch this down. I need to make sure the seam allowance is pressed up in the back. Let me reposition that one. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch as close to the edge right here on both sides as possible to secure this pocket detail. And there we go. Look how pretty that came out. Okay, there we go. All these extra strings, move them out of the way. Let me clip these strings in the back here from the step I just did. And there we go. There's your finished welt pocket. Look at how beautiful it looks from the outside looking in. And this, everything that is on this back side here will be enclosed within our reversible bomber jacket, and it looks absolutely beautiful. So we will go ahead and continue on with the rest of the test. Make sure that you always do your welt pockets first. It's just much easier when you only have this piece to, to shift around rather than the whole jacket.